Getting a space advantage is obviously something you should be looking forward to in general. It means you have more space and more ranks to maneuver your pieces, and generally your opponent's position is a bit more cramped, which means you have more time to design these maneuvers because he will lack the space to create his own counterplay. At the same time, you should be a bit more careful in the sense that generally your pawns are advanced a little bit further, and thus if your opponent gets a liberating break, then suddenly his pieces get active, but also your pawns get weak, and the ranks where your pawns advance become weaker and more exposed to a deadly counterattack. But anyway, I'm going to show you now my game with Arjan Tari from Gibraltar 2019, where I could put this space advantage to to transform it into a victory. So here's the position. We only exchanged a pair of knights. My space advantage is mostly due to the pawn on d5, but clearly I'm enjoying more space to move my pieces, especially in the center, and this will be shown with my next few moves. So first move is knight to f2. The bishop on f5 was ready maybe to jump to g4, h3. So anyway, knight f2 with the idea of e4 is a good idea. What can be said? This vis-a-vis is favoring me because black can never really take on f4. So here I actually have e4, which wins the bishop, but g takes f4 in general would be the idea, and then e4. And I have not only a space advantage, but I also have a majority in the center, which is going to be very useful considering that black again has nowhere to move, and I will gradually prepare after e4 some f5 or some e5, and position is just very stinky. So Arjan played queen c8. I guess probably queen c7 was a tad more precise to have c8 available for the knight immediately, but it doesn't really matter. So e4, bishop d7, queen to d2. f5 was played because he cannot sit there and not challenge me in the center. Otherwise, I will gradually prepare some attack either on the pawn on e5 or maybe some f5 break even. So yeah, at least it gives him a plan, maybe on the f file and so on. So I go rook a to e1, and here goes queen c7. So that's why I said queen c8 was maybe not the best square. So now we reach a second position where we should pause because okay, our bishops cannot really be improved. My queen for now stands very well on d2. My rooks are there where on the files where the fight is going to happen. So clearly the E and F file are very crucial to know who will win the next battle. But there remains the question of the knight. It was useful to bring the bishop back to d7, but now it needs a better square. And what better square than c4, where it presses the pawn on d6. It presses the center, the pawn on e5. And of course, it helps white maybe in the future to play d6. So clearly, this is the next target. How do we get to c4? Well, easy. Knight d1, e3, c4. And after rook f7, knight e3. Already see what can happen if, say, black keeps on piling on the f file right away. So we'll just take on e5. Pawn takes, knight c4, threatens d6. So black has to play knight c8, and already the pawn on e5 is too weak. I'll take it. I take on f5. You have to take with the rook, otherwise you lose e5. I take, and now Bishop e4 looks very strong. Queen e2 looks like it wins the pawn as well. So it's just totally winning for me. So instead, of course, what should be said, of course, is you want to prevent knight c4. So you think you could play b5. But the problem with b5 is no... well, I will not take now, but in the future I will want to take, and now the pawn on c5 is very exposed. And I can make use of that by playing b4. If you take, then queen takes, and all the files are open, the c file, maybe d4 will happen in the future. So really that's not good. b4 will undermine simply black's position, break it open, and then my space advantage, my better pieces can speak. So Arjan chose to create counterplay with e takes f4, g takes f4, bishop to b2, queen to b2. Now he has to prevent e5. So he took and played rook f8. And now he creates this attack on the pawn on f4. But the problem is, again, the space advantage now bears fruit because his pieces were so cramped that they don't have enough room to protect everything. And I'll use that. I'll play e5. You cannot really take because then it's two passed pawns. So that's not good. If you move the bishop to prevent e6, there could be knight c4. There could be, yeah, knight c4 actually looks very good. Knight f5 and now bishop e4. Again, augmenting the pressure on the pawn on d6. But of course, the natural thing to do is to take on f4. And here I take, pawn takes, queen takes. And because of the space advantage, black has this very cramped situation. And after knight c4, he cannot keep on protecting the knight with his queen. So he had to take. And I did win this position a few moves later. I mean, I'm an exchange up. It does require a little bit of accuracy, but in general, yeah, I was able to win this position without making any mistake. So yeah, with this space advantage, what you need to remember is the available options, added available options you have for your pieces, for your maneuvering, the added time you have. But at the same time, be aware of your opponent's counterplay on, you know, the pawns you have exposed. For instance, in the game, Arjan tried to create the counterplay, but he was not in time because I was careful. But had I not been careful, then the pawn on f4 might have been really weakened, and I don't have time to collect my rewards because suddenly I'm put back on the defensive. So these are, you know, this is probably the main pitfall you should be aware of. But overall, of course, it's pleasant and a good thing for your position if you can enjoy some good old space advantage.